so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the pea heads themselves. I am your pea head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head's social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On today's Pea Head Posse episode, our guest is Positive Head listener Emily Stroia. Emily is an intuitive strategist, spiritual teacher, and author of the recently published book, Into the Light, a poetry collection on healing from trauma and abuse. She's also the founder of online school Intuitive Soul Academy, where she serves intuitive women who are ready to develop their spiritual gifts and make an impact in the world. Her work has been featured in Vice, WNPR, Gaia, Tut.com, Tiny Buddha, Huffington Post, and more. Hi, Emily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alexa. It's such an honor to be here. And I love your intro. I was like, yeah, go, Emily.
Seriously. I was about to say, just from the intro alone, I'm so excited to talk to you. You have so much going on.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about everything and all the things.
All of the things. Well, yeah, why don't you actually, tell us a bit about yourself and, share your story with us.
Yeah, so I am an intuitive strategist. That's what I like to call myself, which would probably be your modern day, like intuitive and medium. And I've been doing this work for over 10 years, and I started when I was 21, so I'm 31 now. And so I stepped onto the path of being the teacher because I felt like these tools have been life-changing tools for me. And it was something that I went on a quest for, especially healing, and healing from a very domestic violent background and violence as a kid and a lot of trauma. And so these are the tools that I work with every day to feel happy, to feel good about myself, and to also find healing and find space from really heavy emotions. And so it's been just this really life-changing journey for me of exploring my spirituality and helping other people, explore that for themselves.
Absolutely. We teach best what we most need to learn, right?
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
That's amazing. And so how did you find the podcast?
I found the podcast from a friend who was on the podcast recently, Marissa.
Marissa, what's up, Marissa? If you're listening,
right? Hey, Marissa. So she and I met at an event last year, and we just clicked really fast. I was literally there for 5 minutes, and she told me about the Positive Head podcast later on, and I started listening to it. And I feel like you have to really commit yourself to listening to a podcast, and I liked the catchiness of the song. I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I liked the content. I was like, wow, there's a lot of really awesome insight in this podcast from just all kind of like backgrounds and knowledge on spirituality. So that's how I found out podcast. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear that, the listeners are sharing it with other people that they know would love it, because, as Brandon's always saying, it's like even that small share can really help somebody and can really give them a resource. So that's great. What influence, has this podcast, has listening to it had on your life, if any?
I love it because when I'm driving and living in LA, I moved here from New York like a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So
how do you like it? How do you like the driving? I used to live in LA for 6 years. So.
Yeah. I was like very adjusting to the driving part of it. I haven't had a car in like 10 years. So I'm like, oh, I have a car. Yeah. I drive car. Like, here we go.
Yeah. I drive car. This is what I do now all the time.
So, it's been this fun way of like, I don't like to drive. So I'm like, well, how can I get creative with my driving? And people are like, why don't you listen to podcasts? So I started listening to Positive Heads while I drive. And I'm like, this is such a great way to get to my destination while also having something inspiring to listen to.
And to not have road rage while you drive.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay. So it's been my companion on the road, the Positive Head podcast, and the one, I listened to the interview with JP Sears very recently.
I love that one.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I kind of thought JP Sears was ridiculous. Like when everybody's like, look at his videos. I'm like, I watched it for maybe 2 minutes. I can't watch this anymore. Sorry, JP. And then when I listened to his interview, I was like, oh wow, I totally got a different appreciation for him.
Same.
And totally, I came from a pretty it didn't even give him a chance in the video content that he created. And now I'm like, oh, I'm going to totally go back and watch his videos and see him in a different light than before.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how because I've been noticing this as well. And that actually happened to me as well with JP Sears too, because when I was paleo, there was some video that got sent to me about people, people who are paleo or vegan or, have just all these dietary things that he was doing. And I didn't realize he had a whole brand. And anyway, isn't it interesting how, people and things and organizations will kind of pop into your life at a time when you're not really ready for them. You're not really kind of on the same level, and you're like, oh, and you kind of push them away, and then they come back later in a more meaningful way. And you're like, oh, just like you said, I'm going to look at this person a different way. Actually, I could get into them. I could see the value in this.
He said something that really changed my perspective that's been with me ever since. It was towards the end of the interview, he said something like, I stopped asking the question how and asked who. And it just totally resonated with me. I was like, yeah. And I feel like I've already been on that journey for the last couple of years of letting go of the how, but more who, and building relationships with really solid people. And that's, that's been transformational for me, because I think before I would walk the path alone and try to do it by myself. And just that doesn't work. So I'm curious how you have been connecting with other people, because,
I was thinking recently how I feel like it's kind of a characteristic of all of us who are kind of seekers and on this path, and are kind of aware of all this stuff maybe a little before most people, is we kind of spend a lot of time alone because of this perception that we are alone. It's really easy to isolate ourselves, because I think a lot of us are empaths and feel so much. I know that's definitely true for myself. And it's this kind of constant battle between wanting the isolation and protection and then like wanting to like break out and just connect with as many people as possible. So how did you start surrounding yourself with, more people like you were just mentioning? How did you start making those connections with the Who?
That's such a great question. I feel like in New York, I definitely was more of the isolated, work a lot, go to my psychic development class, and just talk about it with very few people.
Right.
But I know that part of my work here is to like really impact thousands or millions of people who are on this healing journey, to not only get in touch with their spirit, but to also get in touch with the emotional side and let the emotion be okay. Like let it be okay that you feel the things that you feel. And so I realized in my own journey of like moving from being by myself and isolating and as a way to protect myself, to trust myself enough in the world with boundaries. And the only reason why I couldn't do it before is because I didn't know my boundaries very well. I didn't know how to say no. It was hard for me. And I feel like with several people I meet who are very empathic, sometimes it's hard for us to say no. Or like, I can't give that time to you right now, even though I want to help. So that journey for me has been like, who do I want in my inner circle? And know those people are there, like as my tribe, like that these are the people that I can count on, that I'm walking this road with, who, can motivate me and uplift me, because there's a difference between being of service and being the empath who is there to help someone in a healthy way. And then it gets to a point where it's unhealthy, where we end up giving too much. And so it's like, how can we give to another while also giving to ourselves? So finding that healthy balance.
Right. And how are you finding these people in, like you said, your, psychic development classes, or how are you finding these other people that are...
I put Craigslist ad up. No.
Did you? Is this real? Oh.
But that would be fun.
I was about to be like, wow.
No.
That's so amazing.
That would be kind of cool, though. Like seeking my tribe on Craigslist.
Yeah. And they just appeared. We're right here.
It's been this journey, like here in LA. I meet so many people all the time. So I have been just going to places that I want to be surrounded by a certain kind of person. So sometimes there are networking events that are for businesses that are doing good in the world. That's like something I recently went to. The yoga community. So kind of exploring different yoga studios and then making friends with people there that I really resonate with, or that, we vibe off each other. We have good conversation. So it's been kind of like going into communities that are of interest for me. And then, you sort of find your tribe in that way, right? Just like the Positive Head podcast, like we find each other, even if it's, a conversation very briefly, like with Marissa. Now I feel like she's definitely like a good friend to me. And I think it really is on interest, intuition, and trusting yourself.
Yeah. It's something just, popped up for me when you were talking about that, because I think sometimes, again, especially this specific community, it's like once we kind of wake up and get on, realize we're on this path, it can feel almost like our other interests are too, like maybe people there won't be, in harmony with the path we're walking. And it's like something that I've been realizing recently, which it's just piggybacking off of what you said. It's like, our interests are really, they're really specific to us. And we've come here with specific interests in specific areas where like we're meant to infiltrate and like that are actually of interest to us, even if they seem like they have nothing to do with spirituality or, this community. It's like we're kind of, what I'm realizing is we're kind of meant to gravitate towards those areas of interest and infiltrate that area with our light and I just think sometimes it's like we think, oh, well, like I should just be doing the spiritual thing and staying within the spiritual community. And it's like really that realization that like we're really meant to bring the spirituality or like that outlook into all of these communities. And like, you get what I'm saying?
I love that. I think that that's really like what it means to be the change. Like, it's not like, oh, let's just find this one community and stay attached to it. Because then eventually, like, you're only growing in a certain way. Like, if I go and exercise in one way all the time, I won't know the strength of the rest of my body. I won't know, like, what other talents I have, like,
Exactly. And we're, and in trying to protect ourselves from other people, it's like we also block out the joy. Like, because joy comes from contrast and like growing and learning and expanding. You can't really grow and learn and expand unless you're taking in some contrast. So it's like sometimes I think we try to prevent ourselves from ever experiencing contrast when really that's where all our growth comes from. And that's where the joy comes from. I love
that. I was actually just having that conversation with myself like the other day. I like to have like a self-talk.
Like Emily?
I have them daily. Like I check in with myself and I'm like, how am I doing today? Like, because if I'm not doing it, like it's hard to answer that question to another if I'm not really asking myself that. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you do that do you actually like sit in the mirror and say, "Hey, Emily," or do you write, or how do you do that?
Work. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes I like to go for a walk and just kind of like have a chat with myself, or in the morning when I wake up. It's kind of just sometimes throughout the day, I'll just take a second, like while I'm making myself coffee or making myself lunch, and like, how am I feeling? Like, how am I doing? Like, am I taking care of myself? Like, what is there anything else I could do for me today to make sure I'm okay?
Yeah. What happens if the answer is I'm not doing well?
Then I'm not doing well, and people get to know that whenever they talk to me. It's like, it's like, okay, what do I need right now? Because I know that today is going to be one of those days where I'm riding a big wave and I want to make sure I get to like shore, but I got to know that I think what's important is that if I'm not having a good day or I'm not doing well today, that I don't lie to myself or anybody else about it. So, and I feel like transparency is so important, especially for my well-being and health, is to say, because I feel like I used to do that a lot. Like I would be like, oh, I'm good, and I'm learning now, like, I'm doing all right, but I'm just having a rough day today,
Yeah. So something that's popped up in my life in the past few weeks is I'm going on a retreat with Sonia Sophia. If if you listen to the show, you know who she is. She's founder of the World Tapping Circle. And leads taps on the show quite a bit. But in preparation for going to this retreat, I've had to do a lot of coursework, like on EFT. Yeah. Do you know about EFT? Yeah,
I need to explore it more.
Yeah, it really is, because what you're talking about really resonates with what I've been having to do and what I've been having to learn about it, which is that, I'm like really big into the law of attraction and really big into, focus on what you want and positive thinking and all of that. But there is this other side of things, which, I've been learning through this coursework, which is what EFT is based off of, which is like when we ignore the things that we tell ourselves in the back of our mind, or beliefs that we've had all of our life, or, things that are in our subconscious that we don't even realize are there. It just kind of stuffs down into our body and it never feels acknowledged and it never heals because we don't bring any empathy to it. So it's been this really kind of interesting thing for me to now come at my life with this other perspective of, oh, I actually need to, if I want to move past these things, these beliefs or negative thoughts or things that are just running in the background of my mind at all times, preventing me from getting what I want. I actually have to kind of check in and be like, hey, what's here? Whereas before I would kind of always just be like, well, I'm just going to focus on the good. And there's place for that. But just, to what you're saying, it really is powerful to actually ask yourself what's going on and to actually let yourself look at it and bring empathy to it, because that's what allows it to release.
It's like, it's so important. It's so important to have a relationship to those feelings. For me, like, I see it as like, this is my inner child, and it needs to be acknowledged. Like, I feel unworthy today, or, I'm scared, or, I'm worried about this. It's like, okay, like, my life is still good, but I still have these feelings. So it doesn't take away from the sense of optimism or your purpose. I feel like it enhances it, because it makes you become so much more real with who you are. And it's like, okay, like, this is just a part of my journey. Like, I have a different relationship to it, rather than like, oh, there's that negative thought again, and let's just ignore it and keep going. It's just different tools, right? It's tools to make us feel good, and tools like when we obviously want to develop our intuition, we go there, we use those tools, but we also have to know that we need tools for when the car isn't working properly today. Like, we got to like do some maintenance and just sit and figure out what to do with it,
Right. Well, speaking of, developing your intuition, I would love to hear more about, these things we mentioned in your intro, the poetry collection, the Intuitive Soul Academy. I would love to hear just more about that and what you're working on right now.
So I wrote a book called Into the Light. I wrote it about a year. Well, it took me about a year, and I self-published in October. And it is a collection of poetry on healing. Some of it, there are themes of like trauma or abuse in it, but also just like loss and grief, and somebody kind of rising above their circumstance and transforming what has happened to them and using it as a tool to sort of propel them into their purpose, and like having a relationship with it in a very unique way. So the book has a very early life, but it's been inspired by my own journey of walking this road of like taking my darkness and transforming it into light, and also learning to love it, like learning to see it as a part of me that is the masterpiece, right? So that's what Into the Light is, and it's a new kind of like it was a risk for me to like channel my creativity in poetry, and I don't normally do that. So, when did you release it, and can people buy it online, or how can they access it? It's on Amazon. If you search Into the Light poetry, you'll find it, or my name, Emily Stroia. You'll find. I've written a couple other books that are more how to develop books, like psychic development, mediumship, but this is the one that kind of diverges from the path in its own way, but still is tied in, because there are like intuitive kind of poetry in there, and conversations with like angels in my meditations that I have about healing and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. So it's on Amazon. It's all good.
I was about to be like, I want to hear about a little more about that as well, because I love story. I mean, I love something. I want to hear more from you about developing, intuition as well, because for me, I have been really in my head my whole life, and I've had intuition, but it's more like it's like a not letting go type of intuition. It's like, what I'm saying is we have so many people on our show. Once I got introduced into this world, people are talking about, oh, they communicate with, they have an angel that they communicate with, or they, they have spirit guides, or, and I know everyone experiences this stuff differently. And I know everybody kind of has access to different, skills or gifts or whatever you want to call it. But, that mediumship and psychic development to me has always been the most fascinating thing, because I want that, and of course it's like the thing that, we don't have is the thing that kind of fascinates us the most. And so I'm just really interested in, how you work with it. And I'm sure this, bleeds into Intuitive Soul Academy as well. But yeah, okay. I'm just interested.
Well, there's obviously lots of styles of all kinds of like spiritual tools out there. I like to just call them practical tools, because that's what they are. They make us feel better at the end of the day somehow, or they show us like what's at the core of our being and what we're working with. Intuition to me is this ability to be able to sit and ask myself, like, what is the best option for me right now? Or how do I want to like navigate through this situation? Whether it's like I'm going to have coffee with a new friend, or I'm having like a discussion with my partner and I'm struggling with finding the right words. Like, to me, it's like you're tapping into your insight. You're going from the logical to the emotional to the insight. Like we can sort of bridge that. I find that that's where the bridge is. It's like my analytical mind and my emotional mind, and somewhere right in the center of it is my intuitive mind. And there I can find very good insight on like, okay, because sometimes we're looking to navigate life just in this very logical step process, which again, like we all know, doesn't work. It does, in certain things, but when it's a life change or a loss, or, in general, I just want to feel more myself. I feel like that's where we go into the intuition, because that's yourself. That's like your voice. That's where your voice is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what are like, do you have like a tip or something for someone who's trying to get more in touch with that voice?
Really sit with what you're feeling. Like sometimes that's the hardest part. And so what I like to do is like sit and write down the feelings that I'm having, and then ask myself, like, what is my message for me today? What is it that I need to know today?
I like that.
For me. And that it may not always be about my future. Maybe it's just about like, hey, you're okay. Like, look at how far you've come. And that's what's so great is like, we have to have this relationship with, we need a dialogue with ourselves, and we can find true insight from that place.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I like to ask the question, like, what is my message for me today? Like, what do I need to know today? And sometimes the answer doesn't come right away. Sometimes it comes later on in the day.
Right. When you're not so focused on the question, when you're
yeah. Or I'll take a couple of minutes and I'll journal. And what I'll do first is sort of journal my like anxieties or insecurities or my junk, or like blah, just kind of get it all out on the paper.
Yeah.
And then I'll ask like, what is it I need to know today? And then the message just changes, and it's so nice because it's like, oh, okay, like we've taken care of the stuff that needed to be heard. Now, what is the message?
Right. I love that. I'm going to use that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So how does that tie with spirit? Well, I feel spirit does the same thing. Spirit is trying to get our attention. We're in this dialogue with spirit, but it's also like it's a practice to first clear out the house to sit with spirit, right? Like, and we do that through these rituals where we like light our candles and we burn our incense and we play our soft music, or we go to a yoga class or go to a sound bath. Like there's always this preparation for space.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's the same with spirit. It's like they are our allies.
Right.
And we are co-creators with them.
Right.
And so with mediumship, that just kind of happened. I didn't really sign up for it. So, like, I always say this because it's true. Like, I went into it like, I just want to study intuition. I think it's so cool. Like, I want to learn how to use this as a tool in my life and, just be really in touch with myself. And then I started feeling like dead people. And I was like, oh, that's not cool. I'm never going to get a date. Like, I'm not going to have any friends. Like,
so you like spirits were just showing up for you?
Yeah.
And is this
in my practice, like my developmental classes, I would go and I would practice with intuition. Then all of a sudden I would feel like somebody's grandmother or relative was there. And I was like, what is this? It's not part of the exercise. Like, we're supposed to be doing psychic work. And I'm here feeling like somebody's love buddy. It's like love buddy. That's a good word.
Love buddy.
Love buddy. Maybe that's what they want to be called. But, so
positive spin on it.
Yeah. So their love buddy in spirit was coming forward, and I slowly embraced it. It was really hard. It was really hard to say, yeah, I'm a medium, or I have this ability to speak with the other side.
Wow.
And my mother is diagnosed with schizophrenia, so that was a huge thing for me. It was to be able, I was fearful of losing my reality in the same way that I've witnessed her go through being very, sick, to hearing voices. And it was definitely not mediumship voices. So this has been a journey for me to sit and be with this and trust that I'm okay, that I'm mentally okay and still living a healthy life.
Right.
But I have my love buddies in spirit.
Oh, I love that. Love buddies. Totally. And I mean, do you have the same perspective on schizophrenia after, working with them or
I'm still finding answers to that. I do feel like something does happen to one's well-being where they can become sick mentally, just like the body gets sick, and we learn ways to heal the body or cure our illnesses. And if not treated over time, it can really be hard, to really understand how to treat what's at the disease, at the core of the issue.
Right.
I do feel though that sometimes people are having these experiences and they are really having trouble discerning what is going on. Are they hearing spirit? Are they making it up? Is it their imagination? Are they going crazy? Those are the questions that we all ask when this starts to happen. And I feel really helpful to go to a teacher, because the teacher has gone through those motions, or has experienced spirit as a kid, and is a lot of mediums talk about their own journey of embracing and accepting their ability. And the only thing I can really say is trust your process and reach out for help. Get a teacher and read, do lots of research, because doing it alone is really hard. If I was alone feeling spirit, I would be so scared. And I think having a community of students who were all in a similar Hogwarts, we're all just there developing, brought me a lot of safety, brought me a lot of comfort.
Is that what Intuitive Soul Academy is geared towards? So
the Intuitive Soul Academy was birthed about 2 years ago, and it was my opportunity to be able to bring this work to students and make it accessible to everyone. And so there's a mediumship course on there that really kind of takes you from A to Z on the whole practice of mediumship and becoming a medium, professionally speaking. And then my mentorship program, which is a lot more of an immersive experience. So that takes you from A to Z, from intuition to mediumship to leadership skills and emotional intelligence and healing tools that have been great for me in my journey that I share with my students. And that's a very new program that started six or 7 months ago. And we started with 7, my lucky 7. And then now we have 17. And
wow.
They're all women, which, I just kind of feel so honored to say that. I'm like, oh, like these are like my little women, my little tribe of intuitive women.
My little women. Yeah. Love buddy women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all over the world. Like they live, one is in Alaska, one is in Alabama and Iowa and Washington, California, France,
wow,
at London. And I just feel so honored to be a part of their paths as they walk, the intuitive woman's path, and it doesn't mean that they are all going to be mediums, but they take the tools as practical tools to serve them in their life and then also help another. And that's my goal, is to create more conscious leaders who are helping themselves while also helping the world. So it just is a gift that continues to be paid forward.
I love that. It's funny because just the other day, I mentored. I was a music manager. I still am a manager on the side of a visual artist in the music industry. But for a while, I was managing music producers, and along that path, a writer came to me and wanted me to mentor him, and I mentored him. This is relating, I swear. And I mentored him and, got him going and hooked him up with a great artist. And even when I stopped managing, he still continued on with that artist. And just the other day, he messaged me and said, wow, this is really wild because I just got approached by another person asking me to mentor them. And it really felt like full circle. And for a second, I felt myself kind of be like, that old, like almost jealousy or kind of like, I don't know. It's just like an old 3D feeling, yeah, maybe jealousy or something. And all of a sudden I received this new thought that was like, no, this is amazing. You helped him, help her. You help someone and now they're helping someone. And it was just this kind of simple thought that I received that was like, wow, that's so cool. That's so cool to think about that, the impact, just that little impact that you have on someone then has an impact on other people, then has, just like you're saying, it's like, it's really it's so simple, and it's something that I think we take for granted, or we see the other side of it. Like I was just saying, I almost started thinking in the beginning, and it's really empowering to kind of look at it as, every person that we help, they can help other people, and they can help other people, and they can help other people. So it's amazing what you're doing. I love the idea. I love Intuitive Soul Academy. I love the name of it. Because it feels like Hogwarts, which I think we all would love to attend.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great story to share, actually, and also the tinge of jealousy that your ego was feeling for a second, and the fact that you were able to shift that in your intuition, tell you no, look at it this way, and I think that's so awesome. That's the beauty of the intuition, is that the intuition tells you you could stay in that feeling of jealousy for whatever the belief is behind that, or we can acknowledge your growth and your impact in the world. And what a great way to see it. It's you are impacting someone. And I think that's the beautiful part. We practice talking to spirit, but the beauty is that we are also spirit. And so we live in each other. Your spirit now is transcended +3. That girl may now go and mentor someone. And so it's that's the path of the mystic, of the master, is we give our gifts on. And Pablo Picasso talks about that in his quote when he said the purpose of life is to find your passion and then to give it away.
Oh, wow. You just brought that around full circle. Oh my gosh. I just got chills. You just brought that around full circle for me. Cause I've read that quote several times and I got it. I was find your passion and give it away. But just the way you just explained it was Yeah, it really hits me a lot harder. Like, wow, yeah, keep giving it so that it can be given. Oh, spread. And something you just brought up also made me realize, this developing your intuition. It's like what you were saying about how my ego popped up for a second saying, oh, you should be jealous of this. You should be protective of this. You should be wary of this type of thing. And how easy it was to switch. It's like that was not easy a year ago. And you're making me realize this is what developing our intuition is. It's developing our relationship with it so that we allow it in quicker as opposed to pushing it out. Because it's always there, right? Trying to tell us something, but it's like when we're in the ego or when we're letting the ego run the show, we don't give it the time of day. We don't give our intuition the time of day. We're like, no. So that is kind of what developing intuition is, right?
Yeah, I definitely, and I think that's such a great analogy that you use, and your story behind it of like just a year ago that would have been way more challenging for you. And when we're living in that place, in those stories, the ego stories and the limiting beliefs and the fear and all of that, it's so hard to hear our intuition. So the faster we can drop that stuff, even if it's for like 5 breaths, there's a second that the voice will come in and say, hey, no, look at it this way. And that's the trusting part, is like, take that little genius that just showed up for a second and say, yeah, okay, I might not believe it right now because my ego still wants to like believe it this way, but maybe I'll just acknowledge it and write it down and then look at it. And it's like a daily practice, like constantly a daily practice of sitting and hearing that. And when I say sitting, I'm not saying like literally sitting in your house, like doing this, but just like, you acknowledging,
just being with it.
These great shifts in your mind. You're trusting yourself with that. And like that fear of, am I giving it away? And is it going to be stolen from me? And all of that stuff is like, that's another thing, is like you trusting where the information goes and how to treat that information. Because that's like the juice. Yeah.
And like you're saying, it's like being with these things that keep coming up, sitting with them and being with them. It's like, these things that come up, like I just mentioned, that came up for me. It's like they're coming up because they want someone to recognize them and be with them, right?
They just want to be heard.
So, yeah, exactly.
And sometimes they get the best of you. They have a tantrum.
Yeah.
Like I know sometimes I've had, I like to see it as like, I'm in this room of like my unworthiness belief. And I'm like, how long have I been here already? Like 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Like, all right, I got to get out of here. Like, let's go. What's enough of that? Like, I got it. I see you. You're having a day right now. But I got to get on with my day too. So
yeah, I love that. That's a great visual. Well, so how would people find the Intuitive Soul Academy if they want to get on there? Is a website
so
or
it's intuitivesoulacademy.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be checking that out. I will be checking that out. Very excited to follow that and follow what you're doing over there. And congrats on the book. That's so awesome. It's so awesome to just see the different ways that you guys, the listeners, and just this community are expressing themselves and putting their gifts out into the world in all these different ways. Speaking of the community, how would you like to see the Positive Head community expand? Are there any ideas that you'd like to throw out into the collective?
I just think it would be so cool to do some sort of like live experience, like a positive head experience or something, like on the West Coast, maybe Joshua Tree. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. It's really funny that you say that, because Erica Middlemiss, who's on the show, sometimes Erica came to me with an idea about doing an event at Joshua Tree. And I was actually speaking to Joshua Tree back and forth, the people there, about booking. Yeah. Yep. And it started out not with the idea of being a positive head event, but as we kept talking, we were like, well, Erica was like, well, maybe this could be a positive head event. And every single but sorry, before I go further with that idea, that I think that specific idea is being put on pause just because there was just so much going on within the time frame we were planning it for. But you are not the first person to say this, and I think every single person who is a fan of this podcast and this community is looking forward to the day when we do have that event. But I'm volunteering right now, Brandon. If you listen to this, and Erica knows this, I've planned several events before. I know. We're all just Brandon's just on the go, and there's so much happening. But I think that is definitely on the list, and I think that everyone who listens to this would be overjoyed to actually connect in person.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, even if it's you have different speakers or like everybody features kind of like their cool talent, So
yes, the Positive Head Talent Show. Actually, it's funny because in the Facebook group, someone put just like a week ago, they were talking about like something about summer camp or something that they had a dream about, that we were all at camp. And I wrote back, I was like, that's funny because I've had this dream, like an aspirational dream to create like an adult summer camp experience for like the past year. I've been thinking of this. So I was like, maybe it's like the Positive Head adult summer camp experience or something.
I mean,
I don't know.
Tree's fun too. There's just so fun. It's so much funky vibes there. But
yeah. Have you spent a lot of time there?
I recently went there with my boyfriend for our 1-year anniversary, and I mean, it's just thanks.
Oh, congrats!
It's a really like, I was like, oh, the desert, like what it's about the desert, because I used to live in New York, so
yeah, I
always think like more is better, like the stimulation of the senses, and then I went there and I was like, whoa, like less is more, less is more for sure.
That's because I lived in LA for 6 years, and Joshua Tree has always been this place that people in LA go to all the time for different reasons, just to get away or to camp or whatever. And it's funny because the entire time I was there, I never got to go. And so when this event idea came up, I was like, yes, I'm finally going to get to go. But hopefully we can arrange something there in the future for some occasion.
I think it'd be great.
That's great.
It'd be super fun.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one thing you think would benefit every P head to know or understand as they continue on their own journey?
I really feel like just to trust your message, like trust your own inner voice, and know that as long as you have that dialogue with yourself, you will like find and attract the universe, and you will create that together. And it doesn't mean that it will always be like beautiful roses all the time, but there's going to be like so much like profound truth that will be found by exploring and trusting your message.
Isn't that the truth? It's like sometimes I think we believe that like, oh, we have this one destiny or something. We have this one thing that we're supposed to fulfill. And it's like, sometimes you're fulfilling things for other people just by following. If you're connected to your intuition and you're listening, it's like sometimes just like you going to get coffee might be fulfilling something for someone else in this really profound way that, because like we're always kind of being utilized and moved around, even if we're not really aware of it. Like we're all, we're kind of always being piloted. It's like if we can just tune into it, then we can be aware of it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. So everyone live their own expression and their own message.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes we go through these journeys of like trying to find our voice through others. And at some point I don't know about you, but I know for myself, like I kind of stopped doing that. And I started like looking for my voice in myself. And before I would be obsessed with certain teachers and leaders. And I was like, oh my God, their work is so great. And I still enjoy it. I still enjoy it, but it no longer is like this platform to amplify my own voice, as it is more of like, like that's so inspirational to know that there's somebody else out there doing what I also am doing, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Yep. I love that. That's a good one. So final question here. Do you have an intention for 2018?
Yes. It is visibility and impact. So,
ooh. Can you explain? I mean, yeah.
So for a long part of my life, I had a tendency to want to hide. So that is definitely old conditioning for survival reasons and safety. So now it is like giving myself permission to be in my voice, to be in my truth all the time. And so I challenge myself every day, every second. And every second I feel like I want to hide or like go back to this place of safety that is no longer safe, or it's very uncomfortable, actually. The comfort zone is very uncomfortable now. So I force myself. I'm like, all right, well, you want to make an impact in the world and you have your story and you have these tools, and it would be such a shame to just keep those to yourself when you know very well that it's changed your life and others. So my intention is to consistently challenge myself to be visible, and even in the most scariest of moments, and also like make an impact in being, myself, being as transparent as I can be, and share my knowledge with other people.
Oh, I love that. I could take a note out of that same book. That's, the visibility thing is coming up quite a bit recently. And because I think, you're touching on something, as whether it's, ancestral condition, something that's deep within our DNA from, our ancestors who needed to not be seen for some reason, or whether it's like our own story, like you're talking about from, old programming because I have that same thing going on of feeling like I shouldn't be seen, feeling like I don't want to be seen because of, safety. And, when really it's, and that's like it's like the arc we have to make from invisibility to visibility. And it's like a flower. I just have this image of like a flower blooming, from being all closed up in a little bud to opening up towards the light and shining and blooming.
You're going to love this. I literally like posted something on Instagram last night of this like transformational, like the flower in a bud to it blooming.
Oh
like
my God. That's crazy.
Step thing. I'll even send it to you after.
Yes.
And I put a quote, and this might be great to like end with, but, and the day came when the risk to remain tightly in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom, by Anais Nin. But yeah.
Bam.
Bam.
There you go. Love buddy. Love it. That's
Love
great.
Buddy. I think you're like running with that. We got to get some t-shirts made.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh, I have a whole history of I had a company that made custom t-shirts for like 5 years. So there you go. We're going to do it. Love Buddy t-shirts on sale now.
I love it.
That's great. Thank you. This is just, honestly, I'm snowed in over here, and this is just like brightened and made my day. So thank you, Emily, for connecting. This has just been awesome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's truly an honor.
Absolutely. That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration, and if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.